membership and to provide the advocacy, protection, benefits, and training you need. Please visit myaea.org and stay safe.
WVNN. Depend on it. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The time has come for America to hear the truth.
We are going to stand with them, and not only are we going to fight for their rights, but we're going to stand up for our rights here in our state, in our homes, and in our community. Because the future of labor's rights in the United States of America is not going to be decided in the courts. It's not going to be decided in Congress. It's not going to be decided on talk radio, and it's sure it is not going to be decided on Fox News. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, David Story. It is Saturday, September 19th, 2020, and we're broadcasting live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. A recording of this program will play tomorrow, Sunday, September 20th, 2020, on the great WGOL in Russelville, Alabama. Today, we are talking to U.S. Senator from the great state of Alabama, Doug Jones. A recent study found that union nursing homes had 30% lower COVID fatality rates, showing that non-union workplaces are a public safety risk. We'll take calls and more on today's Valley Labor Report. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, you can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/thevalleylaborreport.
Good morning, brother.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here. Looking forward to talking to the senator. We're just waiting for him to zoom in. We're going to be talking to him about, surely everybody that's listening to this show knows that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died last night. So we will ask him briefly for comments on that. We want to talk to him, something that I'm really interested in. I hope we have time to, and I hope we're able to spend most of the time on this, on his record, because there's a lot of just silliness about people, like around conversations about Doug Jones. They will say that he is a radical communist in the vein of Bernie
Marxist.
Sanders, who is not even a radical communist. They will say that he does nothing to help people in Alabama, and like both of these things are just, it's just silly, right?
It's nothing but dog whistles.
Oh, well,
it's just terrible,
yeah,
the way they portray.
And I mean, look, folks, like, I am not, I think people that listen to the program know that both of us are pretty far left, and so we're good judges. It takes one to know one, right? Like, you've got two pretty left-wing folks here, and we're telling you, like, Doug Jones is not nearly as far left as we are, and there are multiple votes that I have disagreed with him on, but he has done really good things for the people of Alabama, like genuinely good things. And he has worked really hard for the people of Alabama. As a freshman senator, as a Democrat in a Republican-led Senate, he has co-sponsored 17 bills that were signed by the president. Like, as a Democrat in a Republican-controlled Senate, and as a freshman senator, like, that's not a thing that happens. But Senator, the senator is on the line now. We've got him on the Zoom call. So, Senator Doug Jones, we appreciate you taking your time to talk to us today.
Hey, not a pleasure. It's my pleasure, guys. It's just kind of a crazy time right now, but thanks for making the time for me today. I really appreciate it. Hope all is doing well.
Well, things are going as well as they could be, I suppose, and we really appreciate you taking your time. So first, I think that we're the first media appearance that you've done since Justice Ginsburg's death. So could you just, is there anything that you'd like to say around her death and around McConnell's statement that he put out only an hour after her death?
Well, I think McConnell's statement was incredibly disrespectful, but, Mitch McConnell is pretty disrespectful of people. He's pretty disrespectful of labor. He's pretty disrespectful of the Constitution. So I can't say that I'm too surprised about that. What I can tell you is that I think we ought to really step back a moment and celebrate the life and legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a remarkable human being. She was a remarkable justice. She was a remarkable woman. She was a remarkable citizen. She truly believed in the rule of law. She truly believed in equality for all. And she is going to be missed in many, many ways, not just simply because of the political nature that we've now seen with regard to Supreme Court nominations. Her voice, her determination, her passion is going to be missed. That's what we need more of, because regardless of her judicial philosophy, her political beliefs, she had such respect for people. And for those that disagreed with her. I mean, her best friend was Anton Scalia. You couldn't get more ideologically different. But that is the kind of voice that we need in this country so bad. We don't need voices that are going to stoke division and hatred, just like, quite frankly, that Mitch McConnell did by perfunctorily giving credit for Justice Ginsburg and then immediately going into a partisan corner. It's just unfortunate, but I think we need to take a little bit of time to celebrate the life and legacy of this amazing woman.
Sure. His statement did not surprise me, but I was genuinely shocked at just the inhumanity of saying that just hours after she died. Like, that genuinely shocked me. It does not shock me that McConnell is a ruthless political actor that will do everything that he can to maintain his power and the power of those that he thinks aligns with him and put down working people. But it did shock me the speed with which he was willing to do that. It
did me as well. He didn't say anything he has not said before, right. So it didn't really need to be said at all. No. I mean, good grief. I mean, let's just have a little respect for people and their life and legacy before immediately making this a political issue. You know, guys, I'm going to tell you, and I'll have more to say after, I'm sure we get back up there on Monday, but the fact is we're in a really different place in this country when the United States Supreme Court has become such a partisan political battle. It was never set up to be that way. It was supposed to be a somewhat independent body, and the Senate was supposed to give advice and consent. Advice first, and then consent if appropriate. We've gotten this to where the Supreme Court is simply an election. 100 people elect, and that's all it is a pure election, and that is really a tragedy for the American people and the American Constitution.
Certainly. So, there's a lot of talk around your career in the Senate. People think that you are on this station. People brand you as like a radical communist. They also say that you do nothing, and both of these things, I think, are really silly. So I'd like to give you just a little bit of space to kind of respond to those and give us an overview of like what are the things that you are most proud of that you have been able to accomplish for working people in Alabama during your time in the Senate. And then my co-host David, he has a couple of questions about some specific things that he wanted to know. But if you could just respond to the general tenor of the conversation around your career and your response to that.
Well, let me say first of all, and again, Alabama used to have a pretty independent voice, and then the Democratic Party kind of left Alabama. We're coming back now with ideas and making sure folks understand how Democrats in Alabama really respond to the needs of people, which is what I've done in the last 2.5 years. That's on health care, it's on jobs, it's the economy. It's helping folks up in that Tennessee Valley area build a strong military and strong national defense. But here's a couple of things I want folks to think about. When they hear this, they just are looking at labels and they're looking at talking points, and they're not looking at a record. For instance, those people say I'm a socialist or communist. Do they know that the United States Chamber of Commerce gave me an award for bipartisanship and for protection of the free enterprise system? I mean, I was one of 2 senators, only 2, to get both of those awards. And the last time I checked, guys, the United States Chamber of Commerce is not a communist or socialist group. It's a pretty conservative, business-related, which is important. Business is important for labor, and labor is important for business. That's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I want to point out is this. And we did these numbers yesterday. I have voted with Senator Shelby almost exactly the same amount as I have voted with Senator Schumer. I mean, the difference of some over close to 500 votes, the difference is only like 7 votes in which I have voted with Senator Shelby just over 67% of the time, Senator Schumer just over 67% of the time. That is hardly a puppet for anybody. That is somebody that votes independently for the people of the state of Alabama. So I'm very proud of the record. If you look, 21 bills is pretty remarkable, as you said, and I'm very proud of that. As somebody that in a party that doesn't control the Senate, that doesn't control the White House. I don't even think Jeff Sessions had 21 bills his entire 19 years in the United States Senate. Right. So we've done it, and they're votes for small businesses, they're votes for farmers, they're bills that we pass for health care. You mentioned one of the greatest things, the thing that makes me the proudest. It is probably the elimination of what was known as the military widows tax. It demonstrates my support for veterans, because for 30 years, military widows, Gold Star widows of service members who died as a result of a service-related injury or death were denied benefits. The Department of Defense and VA combined and offset their 2 pools of benefits, one of which they had paid for out of their own money. So they only were getting about 55% of what they were due, what this country owed to them, and what they had paid for. It was the #1 priority for veterans. No one thought we could do it because it costs money to do it. And doggone it, last year, my office and myself, we set out on a mission. We set out on a mission, and we worked so hard. We ended up getting close to 80 co-sponsors in the Senate. We passed it as part of the NDAA. And I got to tell you guys, one of the most rewarding days I will ever have was voting on that in the United States Senate with about 30 of those widows sitting up in that balcony. It was an emotional day.
Right. Okay. You did perfect. You cut off right before the break. So we're going to be coming on here in just a couple seconds. We're in a break.
No, we're actually not in a break. I stopped the break so we could continue us.
Oh, okay.
Senator Jones, because we've only got about 2 more minutes. And Senator, I'll be real quick. I certainly appreciate you coming on and speaking to the working folks of Alabama. I would be remiss if I didn't ask. I've got a lot of members in the Machinists Union that work in the airline industry, and we thank you greatly for helping, get some of them, some subsidies into the airline industry that helped keep those working people employed. Not only keeping those working people employed, but keeping the airline industry functioning, which is an extremely important part of the economy of America. And they kind of wanted to know: do you hear any rumblings about how we're going to do on the next on this next COVID response bill that may be coming up?
Well, there's a lot of talk about this. I can't tell you, and I think the Ginsburg death has really thrown a political monkey wrench into everything right now. So we don't know. I'm hoping that we can still we're working on a package that would include some relief for the airline industry to help those machinists, because I think that that's really important. It's really going to depend on McConnell and whether or not he and the Trump administration will move any at all. What they've put out right now is just totally inadequate. It doesn't cover any of the folks in Alabama, or doesn't cover very much. We've got to protect those machinists with the airlines. We've got to protect healthcare workers. We've got to protect city and county workers. Folks are getting laid off because our city and county governments are not getting anything. And so I think there's a chance. But, we're going to continue. I tried to get the Butch-Lewis Act, which is protecting pensions, involved in there as well, and I'm still hoping that Mike can get it. I do want to give one quick shout-out. I know you got a lot of machinists out there, but I got to tell you, I was in South Alabama yesterday, and I went over to the Alabama Power Company staging area to help those hurricane folks. And your IBEW people down there are doing a hell of a job too, guys. I got to tell you, they are working around the clock with passion, with professionalism, and I could not be prouder of the IBEW folks that are working late, getting up early, and getting out there and getting people's powers restored, because it's pretty bad down there.
Yep. Senator, it's 9:50, and I know you've got some other previous engagements to meet, so we wanted to thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for your time and speaking to the people of Alabama, something that we hope we can see a debate eventually between you and Tuberville, and he won't keep running like a coward, but maybe that won't be the case. Maybe we can get you on with him, but we certainly appreciate your time.
Well, I'll come back on whether he does or not. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it. That was U.S. Senator from the great state of Alabama, Doug Jones, on the program. Like I said, when I was talking to him, we really appreciate him taking the time. And I wanted to say, I forgot to mention this, but he was on the front lines of fighting for the TVA workers. While everybody else was sleeping on that issue, the TVA was trying to outsource 20% of its IT department. It was trying to put 20% of its IT department in the hands of foreign companies, foreign corporations that take advantage, that use, indentured servitude almost for their labor. Take it out of the valley, which is what the TVA is supposed to do. The TVA is supposed to electrify the valley, and the TVA is supposed to be an economic boon for the valley. And while everybody else, while Tommy Tuberville, while Richard Shelby, while President Trump, while most of the representatives from Alabama were not doing anything, they weren't saying anything, they weren't trying to make anything happen, Doug Jones was trying to work on this. And so, that's another thing to keep in mind, and we really appreciate him working on that for Tennessee Valley workers.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. www.livestreamed.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the machinist unions over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at iamaw44.org.
Here in Huntsville, federal employees are an invaluable part of the nation's defense, offering unmatched expertise in engineering and technology and as stewards of taxpayer dollars. What we ask for in return is to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, is a union of working people looking out for each other, making sure that we're treated right. To inquire about joining or to learn more, call 256-876-4880.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
WVNN.
Long-haired preachers come out every night. I try to tell you what's wrong and what's right, but when asked about something to teach, they will answer in voices so sweet.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. We've got a short segment here before we go into the break for the top of the hour news. So, folks, if you want to call in, talk to us on the other side of the break, talk to us about Ginsburg's death, talk to us about Doug Jones, anything else, feel free to give us a call at 1-866-494-9866. That is 1-866-494-WVNN.
So here's something, because we were cut so short on Jones's not really interview, but we appreciate him coming on. But we were cut so short. It was something that I wanted to point out that come out in the media last week, and I think that it's important for the listeners to hear what his opponent is saying.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you know, Jones has really done a wonderful job with the marginalized and minority communities in the state of Alabama, and it really speaks to his opponent's idea of policy and just general education with what he's saying. But here's a quote from Mr. Tuberville. He was in Birmingham, Alabama at the Sunrise Rotary Club, and they asked him about the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which, in Alabama, if there's anywhere else in the nation that we should know about that, it's in Alabama. Right. And his reply was, I quote, the thing about the Voting Rights Act, it's, there's a lot of different things you can look at it as. Who's it going to help? What direction do we need to go with it? I think it's important that everything we do, we keep secure. We keep an eye on it. It's run by the government, and it's run to to the point that it's got structure to it. It's like education. I mean, it's got to have structure. Now, for some reason, we look at things to change, to think we're going to make it better, but we better do a lot of work on it before we make a change. And that's the end quote. I'm flabbergasted.
He doesn't know anything. This man is a fool. He doesn't even know what the voting. If instead they had asked the question, what does the Voting Rights Act do? It would have been worse. It would have been even worse. Because he clearly doesn't even know what it does. And he was just trying to BS his way through an answer.
And that's why we can't get debates in Alabama, because they don't know policy. All they know is, I'm a Republican. That's it. Folks, you're listening to the Valley Labor Report. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Huntsville's #1 news, talk, and weather station. WVNN Athens. WVNN FM Trinity. A Cumulus station. It's 10 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. Without delay, that's how President Trump ended a tweet discussing the need to fill the vacancy on the Supreme Court created by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday.
Justice Ginsburg's death touches off a battle in a polarized Washington. Her death comes 45 days before the presidential election. Justice Antonin Scalia died 269 days before the 2016 election, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland. At the time, Donald Trump said Obama's successor should make the pick, but sources told ABC News President Trump is expected to put forth a nominee.
That's ABC's Eric Katersky. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the difference between 2016 and the present day is that the same party controls both the Senate and the White House. He said President Trump's nominee will get a vote in the Senate. As the political discussion continues, so do the tributes to the 87-year-old justice who became a cultural icon during her 27 years on the bench.
She was born into a very different America where liberty and basic opportunity and human dignity for women look very, very different than they do today. And that change came about in large part because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her fierce determination changed America.
That's ABC's Terry Moran at the Supreme Court. The U.S. death toll from the coronavirus expected to reach 200,000 people this weekend. ABC's Trevor Ault says the president continues to push the message about vaccines.
President Trump is offering an ambitious timeline in the race for a vaccine. He says hundreds of millions of doses are going to be available every month, and he expects to have enough vaccines for every American by April. Now, he's saying that just days after the president's own CDC director said he didn't expect a vaccine to be generally available until the late second or third quarter of next year.
Hurricane watches along the Texas Gulf Coast as Tropical Storm Beta is strengthening. You're listening to ABC News.
Have you ever thought about saying goodbye to your job? Just walking into your boss and saying, I quit. And how would you like to commute to work without ever leaving your home? Well, not long ago, a 39-year-old entrepreneur from a billionaire family spent $20 million in 3 years to find the best home-based business in North America. He researched 70 different companies, and when he found the only one that had real long-term potential, he bought it. And right now, he's looking for people to help him turn this company into his next billion-dollar success story. So if you're serious about making money from home without having to leave your home, well, grab a pen. Because I'm about to give you the address of a website where you can learn all about this unique and rare opportunity. Write this down, www.goherenext.com. Now get on your computer and go to this site now. Part-time or full-time, your income is based totally on your performance. Interested? GoHereNext.com and say goodbye to your boss tomorrow. GoHereNext.com.
Ours are the first generations to feel the effects of climate change and the last to be able to do anything about it. The window to meet this historic challenge is closing. We're already losing our lives and livelihoods. Millions have already been impacted by climate change. We can passively accept this fate, or we can join together and take back our power. If we so choose, our best days are ahead. We have a legacy of coming together to face crises that threaten the very ideals of our nation. From the horrors of slavery to the depths of the Great Depression, from the spread of fascism during World War II to the rise of Jim Crow, we have overcome before and we have the power to do it again. Let's end the climate crisis by igniting a transformational new era where the government works for the common good. Go to arminarmforclimate.org. That's arm in arm, the number 4, climate.org to learn more.
Public schools are critical to the success of communities and democracy. Now more than ever, our educators and school support staff are going above and beyond to support our students and families. We at the Alabama Education Association are proud to represent the hard-working employees of our public schools and colleges. Thank you for all of your love and dedication to Alabama's students. Please take care and stay safe.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Or tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
It's your news now. WVNN. Depend on it.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, David Story. If you want to talk to us, you can give us a call at 1-866-494-9866. That is 1-866-494-9866. We were talking about Tupperville before we left, and his comments on the Voting Rights Act, and just to kind of back, because you know, people generally kind of know what the Voting Rights Act did, but they a lot of folks don't know that it was struck down by conservative activist judges that in Scalia's opinion, I believe it was Scalia that wrote this, in Scalia's opinion, he did not have constitutional objections to the Voting Rights Act. He said that the Senate would, or the Congress would never have that it was not necessary anymore, and the Congress would never have the guts to repeal it, and so they were going to do it because it was no longer needed. It was not, because this is clearly constitutional. It's clearly constitutional that the government should ensure that people do not have their right to vote violated by local and state political officials, exactly. Which happened and is happening.
Which is happening now.
On this station constantly, people say that voter suppression is a myth, and it's just foolish. It's a silly thing to say because
when we're shutting down polling places in minority voting districts,
exactly.
There's some issue there.
Exactly. Think about all the places in Georgia, in Alabama, and Mississippi that polling places have shut down or have not opened new polling places, and then think about the demographic makeup of that. So during the primary, I saw long lines, like incredibly long lines to vote, and everybody in that line was a minority. I think maybe I saw one white person in this line. So clearly this is a majority-minority polling precinct. I have never in my life, I have voted every single election that I have been eligible for. That's like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, okay? I have never in my life waited more than 15 minutes to vote.
Dude, I've been voting in the country most of my adult life. and I've never waited.
Yeah.
Never waited. Ever.
I have never waited more than 15 minutes, and I'll give you a guess as to the demographic makeup of the precincts that I'm in, okay? And it's lunacy to say that this is not intentional. And it's not as bad, incredibly, it's not as bad in Alabama as it is in Georgia. Georgia it's been insane. There are people that in the primary waited for, I believe, up to 8 hours to vote. And if you don't think that has an effect on the people that are willing to sit in line for 8 hours, you're lying. You're lying to me. I don't believe you. I don't believe the people that say that waiting in line for 8 hours has no effect on the willingness of citizens to vote. I don't believe you, okay? If you're saying that, I don't believe you. And it's the gall to be able to be a public figure and lie so brazenly is amazing to me.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Jacob.
And Tommy Tupperville doesn't know a thing about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point that I was about to make is I don't think it's the fact that Tupperville really is against the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I don't think it's the fact that he would like to go in and repeal the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I think it's just a simple fact that he's ignorant. I mean, and that's a hard thing to say, that we have somebody running for senator of our state that is just and in today's society, it's willful ignorance.
Yeah.
Because there's enough information out there, you got to research it. But the fact is, why research anything? Why put out any policy? Why schedule a debate with Senator Jones? Because I think the R next to my name is the only thing that I need to win. And it's my opinion that the people of Alabama deserve to hear someone articulate the policy that they are going to support when they get in office.
Right. You know, the question comes up a lot. Is it stupidity or is it evil, right? Is it ignorance or is it malevolence? And I think for a lot of these people, the answer is yes. You know, you stupid? Are they stupid or evil? Yes, is the answer. He obviously doesn't know anything about the Voting Rights Act, but he knows that he has to know enough that it helps him and it hurts minorities and the ability for minorities to make their voices heard. That's all he needs to know. That's all that he needs to know. I mean, it's stupid or evil. The answer is yes.
Well, they know for a fact that, you know, the last numerous presidential elections, including this previous one, if you go by a Democratic vote, that the Republicans never win. They can't win.
Republicans have won the popular vote one time in the past 35 years.
So they know for one they need to prop up the electoral college, and for two they need to suppress Democratic votes because that's the only way they win. They don't support working class people in this state or in this country.
Well, speaking of voting, especially with Ginsburg's death, I'm genuinely worried about a repeat of the 2000 election where not only the winner of the popular vote, but the winner of the electoral college did not become the president of the United States. And I'm worried about something worse happening because, I mean, what's going to happen is you're going to have all these places with mail-in ballots, and the Republicans are going to try to stop them from being counted, and they're going to delay the count, or they're going to just throw all these ballots away, and it's going to go to their state Supreme Courts, which are all run by conservatives or by Republicans, and then the United States Supreme Court is probably just not going to hear these cases, and it's going to stay with the state Supreme Court decision, and we're going to end up in a scenario again like in 2000 where Trump is obviously not going to win the popular vote. Like that is baked into the cake. He could potentially win the electoral vote, but he could still come out president again after losing the electoral college, or after losing the votes that would get him the electoral college, because Republicans are just going to be...
We're going to be counting Chads in Florida?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
Or they're just not going to count mail-in ballots, or they're going to try not to count mail-in ballots.
Yeah. I'm not going to call pull the fire alarm quite yet on stuff like that, because I believe that maybe that we still do have some elected officials with integrity across the nation, but they're fastly dwindling. Dwindling.
I don't know. I'm genuinely worried about it.
Well, organize.
Yeah.
Organize.
Right.
We go back to the same thing we always say, organize.
Yeah, and you know, like, and the reason that I'm worried about it is because of like the ruthlessness of Mitch McConnell and like his bloodthirsty power grabbing in the wake of Ginsburg's death.
I've never seen nothing. I never would have expected to see that happen within 1 hour of the death being announced. It's sickening, really. It's sickening when politics overrides your basic humanity.
I mean, yeah, that was wild. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the study that found that we're going to switch gears and talk about the study that found that nursing homes that had a union had a 30% lower COVID-19 fatality rate than non-union nursing homes.
No kidding.
No kidding. Non-union workplaces are a public safety risk. We'll talk about that on the other side.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. Ours are the first generations to feel the effects of climate change and the last to be able to do anything about it. The window to meet this historic challenge is closing. We're already losing our lives and livelihoods. Millions have already been impacted by climate change. We can passively accept this fate, or we can join together and take back our power. If we so choose, our best days are ahead. We have a legacy of coming together to face crises that threaten the very ideals of our nation, from the horrors of slavery to the depths of the Great Depression, from the spread of fascism during World War II to the rise of Jim Crow. We have overcome before, and we have the power to do it again. Let's end the climate crisis by igniting a transformational new era where the government works for the common good. Go to arminarmforclimate.org. That's arminarm, the number 4, climate.org to learn more. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. If you're looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334. That's 256-383-3334, or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
The talk station in Alabama, WVNN. Depend on it. Let's go!
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. I'm here with my co-host, David Story. We have been talking, we talked to Doug Jones earlier in the show. We talked about Tommy Tuberville. We talked about the Voting Rights Act. Now, coming back to our bread and butter, we're talking about unions, okay? And when I saw this, I was really happy. I was not surprised, but I was really happy. And so what this is a study out of the Health Affairs Journal. It's an academic journal about health affairs. And what it found is that more than 40% of all reported coronavirus cases, deaths, came out of nursing homes, right? This has been known for a while. A lot, like a really disproportionate amount of deaths have come out of nursing homes. Part of the reason for that is, of course, because nursing homes house older people, and older people are more susceptible to the virus, right?
They're held captive.
Yeah.
They're held captive. I mean, it's basically a prison for old folks.
Yeah, yeah. So, but what this study found is that in nursing homes where the healthcare workers had unions, there was a 30% relative decrease in COVID-19 mortality rates compared to facilities without healthcare worker unions. Additionally, there was a 40% decrease in coronavirus cases in nursing homes with healthcare worker unions. And so what this does is it shows that, which is something that anybody in a union knows this already. Yeah. Anybody that's listening to this show knows this already. But unions, we don't just fight for our members, okay? We fight for our members. We fight like hell for our members, okay? And we deserve to have people fighting for us, okay? Working people deserve advocates, and working people deserve to be able to be their own advocates. We deserve higher wages, better working conditions, better health care, better benefits, more time off, okay? These are things that working people deserve. But unions are also fighting for our communities. We're fighting for the people that we serve, because especially in these like service industries like healthcare, this is not just a job to them. This is like they want to be able to do their job well. And so in places like in the hospitals up in Pennsylvania where we talk to those union nurses, and in nursing homes where they have unions, the union allows the workers to have a voice on the job, and it allows them to do their job better because they can get their boss out of their way. I mean, because like anybody that's been working for any amount of time has had a situation where their management got in the way and they were telling them to do something that you knew was going to screw up the job, that you knew it was going to take longer, it wasn't going to be as efficient. And when you're in a union, you get to dictate more of the terms of your employment. You get to bargain over PPE. Like in nursing homes where there was unions, there was greater access to PPE, which is one mechanism that may link unions to lower COVID-19 mortality rates, and this helps the people that they serve. I mean, it's amazing what giving workers a democratic voice on the job can do, not only for themselves but for their communities.
It's a simple fact that CEOs, CFOs, administrators, managers are constantly trying to cut resources in an effort to increase profits. I mean, that's a simple fact. So we know that when there's a union in place to bargain over those resources, that you're going to have a greater increase in safety. I mean, not only the resources to the PPE, but I guarantee you they've got a safety committee as well that's investigating any claims by union members that are pointed out to be unsafe, and they get to go to the table and negotiate this as a union, as a group of workers. They don't have to just sit there and do what they've been told to do. And that's the great thing about unions in general. That's not surprising at all. I'm surprised that you came up with that article. I'm surprised that somebody came out with one so quick, but I think it lends to everything that we've been saying the past several months.
Absolutely. And it is like, it's not surprising, but it's amazing. Like 30% a relative decrease in COVID-19 mortality rate of 30%. Like, that's a lot. That is not an insignificant amount of better service for the people that they're serving. I mean, that's lives. We're talking about people's lives being on the line, and unions fighting for people's lives. Like that. I mean, that's amazing.
Hey, Jay, we got Kareem out of Huntsville on the line. He didn't say what he wanted to talk about, but we got about 3.5 minutes left. Welcome in, Kareem. What you got, brother?
I agree with you guys totally. The only problem is that the Republicans has managed to convince a lot of poor white people throughout this country that it's a sin for them to have health care, or it's a sin for them to have any kind of help from the outside. They keep telling them, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Meanwhile, I don't see them benefiting them anyway. They've been voting Republican for the last 50, 60 years, and all they do is get jerked. It seems like they're saying, well, at least I'm not black. That's the only thing they have to deal with.
Let's clarify one thing. The majority of Alabama hasn't been voting with Republicans for the past 50 or 60 years. Now, they've been voting with Republicans since roughly around 2000. But prior to 2000, Alabama was a solid Democratic state. But the Republicans ran such a great game, making everyone think, the poor folks out in the rural areas, that they could better themselves by voting for them. I mean, they done a slide of hand.
And the sad part about it is that I see so many poor white guys. I mean, me myself, because I own a small business, and I hired maybe like 5 of them the other day, and they was willing to work for pennies, but I had to give them more money because I had to let them know that they was worth it, that the work that they was doing was worth it.
Yeah. All labor has dignity. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That all labor has dignity, and then they're doing good. Then they're doing good work at the same time. But they are so convinced, and I think the Democrats is missing a prime opportunity. They really need to come out and talk to these folks and explain to them that they need health care, they need dental care, They need stuff like that so they can live.
Not only that they need it,
so they can live.
Not only that they need it, but they deserve it. They deserve it.
They deserve it.
Yeah,
they deserve it.
The Democrats, and I see some of them beginning to do that in some areas with Hometown Action, one of the sponsors that of our show. They're beginning to reach out and to these rural areas and help educate, and the same thing that we're trying to do, help educate a lot of the blue collar working class folks.
It's like the only thing they do. Everybody want to reach out to the black community. A lot of us have made up our mind. We already know we're not voting for Trump.
Right.
Okay, that's day one. But at the same time, they need to go to these people. They have, just have community meetings with them. You got to change their minds. And I think if they're able to do some of that, we won't have such a hard time come November.
I think so. I think you're right. And I think that's why, like David said, that's why we want to do this show, is to educate people. Because not only do people, are people told that, like I was saying with Doug Jones, like Democrats are like radical communists or whatever, which is just a silly thing to say, but they also don't know the power that they can have through organizing, through a union, and these are things that even more than voting for Democrats are going to help people, and so that's what we want to, we want to share the good news, so to speak, of organizing and what you can win if you fight with your brothers and sisters on the job and in your community. And it's not even just voting for Democrats. It's not even primarily voting for Democrats. That's not even the majority of what we talk about on the show. The majority of what we talk about is fighting with your sisters and brothers on the job at the point of production. And because that's where you have the most power.
Yeah.
You have way more power from your labor than you do from your vote. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. This is the Valley Labor Report. If you want to talk to us, give us a call, 1-866-494-9866. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. News starts now.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, remembered as a hero and an icon. ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran is in Washington, where a makeshift memorial is growing in size.
The flags here at half-staff, people still gathering here at the Supreme Court. Justice Ruth Ginsburg, one of those Americans, and there aren't many really, who through force of character and her brilliant intellect was able to expand our understanding of those bedrock constitutional ideals, equality and liberty.
Ginsburg passed away after a long battle with cancer. She was 87. Meanwhile, President Trump on Twitter indicating that he'll move to nominate a replacement for Ginsburg before the election. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who in 2016 had said before an election was the wrong time to confirm a nominee, now reversing himself. Those raging wildfires in California forcing new evacuations in Los Angeles County, and also in Southern California, a 4.5 magnitude earthquake last night. No reports of major damage or injuries. Dave Packer, ABC News.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
The Dale Jackson Show, a safe space for terrible people. Weekdays, 7 to 11 a.m., only on WVNN. WVNN. Charge for the land. A population burned up, bled dry. The marginalized multiply. And unite to fight. You raided the world. Now they're tearing you apart.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. You are here this morning with myself, Jacob Morrison, and my co-host, David Story. We've been talking about Doug Jones, Tommy Tuberville, the Senate election, COVID-19 in nursing homes with and without unions. Kareem just called in. Thanks for the call, Kareem. We hear you all the time on WVNN, so we appreciate you. We appreciate you calling us. That was fun. It's nice to have folks calling in. I did want to say, though, I just wanted to reiterate that point that I was making before we came into the break, that like, you can organize in a union and not even vote for Democrats like that. Like, you have so much more power with your labor than you do with your vote, that that's the thing that we really want to emphasize, is organizing in your workplace, forming a union, fighting together with your brothers and sisters on the job for better working conditions. And when you organize a union, you don't have to wait for a politician. You don't have to rely on a politician. You don't have to rely on the good graces of your boss. You just have to believe that your labor is worth something and fight for it. That's it. That's all it takes. Most of David's members, in fact, are conservative or libertarian leaning. And David will fight like hell for them. He will fight tooth and nail for his members, and his members will fight for him. Right? It doesn't, like the bonds that you have with your brothers and sisters in a union transcend almost anything else. Okay? Like, I don't care.
Absolutely anything else.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely anything else.
I don't care ultimately. I mean, I care. I do. I care who you vote for in November. And I'll tell, like, and I don't care to talk about that with you. But if you vote for Trump in November and you are a member of my union, you are in the labor movement, I will fight for you. And people that are in the labor movement that are going to be voting for Trump in November, they're going to be fighting for me. I think they're voting against their own interests when they vote for Republicans. And I think that's obvious. Republicans have made it clear that they do not think working people should have power in this country. They think it should be run by oligarchs and autocrats. That's obvious. But that takes education. That takes, you have to, that's one of the reasons we're on the air, so we can educate people about that. It's how obvious it is that Republicans do not think that working people should have power in this country. But additionally, I've got a couple of housekeeping notes. We interviewed a couple weeks ago some members from the Machinists Union Local S6. They came out of the largest private sector strike in America in 2020. 4,300 workers walked off the job for 9 weeks, I believe it was, for 9 weeks, and won what they were looking for. They got what they were looking for. They protected their seniority. They protected their subcontracting, and they also got 3% raises over 3 years, every year for over 3 years. So that was really amazing. We've got those interviews on Patreon right now. You can view those interviews. You can listen to those interviews right now if you are supporting us on Patreon. So go support us at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. And if you're not supporting us, that's fine. We want to make sure that all of our content is free. In a week or so, those interviews will be public. So we just had a caller. David is going to read an ad for a restaurant that's advertising with us. Then we'll talk to the caller. So David?
Well, I don't know if it's reading an ad. I'm going to discuss the Punta Cana restaurant over in Madison, Alabama. First generation American out of the Dominican Republic. Him and his family started the Punta Cana restaurant. He's catered to our work a couple of times, and I can tell you the food is unbelievable. He's from the Dominican, but it's kind of a fusion of Dominican Caribbean food. But it's at 30,098 Andrea Lane in Madison, Alabama, which is just down from the Publix over there on County Line Road. They got several combos that are unbelievably good. The stewed chicken, fried plantains. They've got chicken drumsticks, fried chicken drumsticks, chicken plantain sandwich, and Tony said his favorite is the specialty dishes, which is a sample platter plate. And the sample platter plate consists of stewed chicken, pork, steak, rice choices, mango, beans, and salad choices. So $10 for that combo plate with chicken, steak, pork, the whole 9 yards. I mean, that's really a deal, and that includes your drink there. So stop by there and give him a try. You'll be really impressed. And he's working his tail off. First generation American coming over here, working at the plant with us, working after work. In his restaurant. He's living the American dream, and he's ecstatic, man. Yeah. He's really ecstatic, and a great kid. Yeah. I say kid. He's about your age. He's just out of college. He's about 23, 24, man, and he's out there killing himself. Really cool. He's out there killing himself, and he's doing a good job. That's really stop by Punta Cana restaurant.
All right.
Yeah, and we got a caller on the line, and I think it was Mark. Mark, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Appreciate listening to your show, but one thing I think is very dangerous, to say that just Republicans don't care for the working class is such a blanket just statement, because I look at it like the problem that our country's having a lot is that everything has turned into kind of, we use a phrase around here, Alabama-Auburn, where, you have an Alabama fan who looks at a guy like Cam Newton and thinks he's not a good player just because he played at Auburn, or an Auburn fan and doesn't like Nick Saban, so Nick Saban's not a good coach. Mm-hmm. I think it's a dangerous statement to come out and say, like Kareem earlier, and I hear him all the time on all the different shows, and, to go blatantly just one-sided like that on blanket statement, to me is very dangerous, because I don't believe the fact that Republicans are against the working class, because I know a lot of Democrat billionaire CEOs that don't care about their employees just as much as you may say that there's a Republican head of a company or politician.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you probably hit the nail on the head, and me and Jacob, believe it or not, have a lot of discussion about that outside of the radio show. I'm not a big fan of Democrats or Republicans, but I think, and I'm not trying to speak for Jacob, but I'll speak from my perspective of I lean towards what he leans towards, agreeing with what he said, for the simple fact that we were talking about right before the show. If you look at the Republicans, they refuse to even debate. They refuse to even hold a debate on their own policies because they think that they're going to win. It's just an automatic. Right. And I think that's dangerous for democracy, because it doesn't do justice to not only the Republican Party, but it doesn't do justice to the citizens to actually listen to, for example, Tommy Tuberville. Mm-hmm. What is your thoughts on policy besides I'm going to get in there and support Trump, who may or may not get elected in another month? So
right.
Well, I think that's the political environment as a whole. I mean, like right now, I'm like you. I'm kind of sick of both parties. I can't believe that the two people that we're putting forward on either side is the best that our country has.
It's terrible.
And you know, and I sit back and I think that they set up elections now based on what the other person has done wrong or what they don't think they can do versus what are they going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you that Democrats are, by and large, also not for, or they're not very good at supporting working people. But I think that the allegiances of the Republican Party are much more clear. You look at the priority of the Trump administration was getting those tax cuts for the wealthy, 80% of which went to like multi-billionaires, you know, like this is not a party that prioritizes working people. Now, we can also say this about the Democrats. Look at their messaging bill that passed the House for the second round of coronavirus relief. They voted to subsidize COBRA, which is the least efficient and most expensive way to have health care in this country, instead of trying to expand Medicaid or expand Medicare further. Okay, they are beholden to their corporate billionaire donors as well, but I believe that recent history has shown that Democrats are more easily pushed to support working people because still in their party coalition are our unions, the labor movement, people that have these priorities. The Democratic Party is a big tent party that has multiple different polls. You've got this corporatist poll, and you also have a poll of organizations and working people. Whereas the Republican Party is almost completely financially supported by oligarchs, and that. I mean, you know, and so that's where I come down on. But the reason that we have the show and the reason that we emphasize unions and work and organizing at your workplace much more than we do partisan politics is because we believe that's more important. We believe that it is easier, more efficient, and more and you can get more gains by organizing in your workplace than you can by voting for a Democrat or a Republican at the ballot box.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you that wholeheartedly. I think that, you know, I think they're both, the Democrats and the Republicans, and just the political environment in general, there's so many people that they're protecting themselves versus protecting us. So I agree with you on that.
And real quickly, though, I will say that I don't think that Doug Jones is primarily running a negative campaign. I disagree with him on a lot of things, on the Patriot Act, on the banking deregulation, but he's not. He's running a campaign on what he has done and what he wants to do.
Yeah, and
that's not what Tupperville is running.
No, if you listen to our show regularly, I think it goes without saying that we've probably been more critical of Senator Doug Jones. And I know for certain that I've been extremely critical of Senator Doug Jones more than a lot of the Republicans in office, just for the simple fact that I expect more out of him. Mm-hmm. And I've said it numerous times, Doug Jones is probably the strongest Republican candidate that we've got in the state of Alabama. And that's the truth. I mean, most of his policies are
I mean, he was
he
got an award from the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
but I do believe I said it when Tuberville and Sessions was running earlier in the primary. I supported Sessions 100% because I do believe that Sessions was a better candidate for the workers in Alabama.
Right.
And now that the Republicans have elected Tuberville, I believe Jones is going to be the stronger candidate than Tuberville.
I mean, and at least Jones, like, he's got a theory of government, right? He has things that he believes, and you can look at his record, you can look at his statements, and you can like assess that. Like, you don't have that with Tupperville. He's just an empty, like, He's just an empty politician. He doesn't know anything, and he's just repeating buzzwords and culture war nonsense.
Hey, Mark, we got about 10 more seconds. Appreciate the call, man. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it. I love talking to people. That's why, you know, that's why we wanted to get on this station instead of like doing a podcast, is because we want to meet workers in Alabama where they are, and where they are is conservative talk radio.
Yeah, and I think it does a good job because he's a reasonable caller. He made a reasonable point, and nobody got aggravated and shouted him down and talked over him.
Yeah,
we
appreciate the call, brother.
We got to start listening to people.
Definitely. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, believes all workers are entitled to fairness, dignity, and respect. AFGE also knows that the best way to guarantee proper treatment is for workers to stand together, united, looking out for each other. In AFGE, we fight for workers every day to ensure a workplace that is safe and free from harassment. If you're a federal employee and want to be a part of this union to protect yourself and your fellow workers, call 256-876-4880. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
WVNN. Depend on it.
Okay, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We just had a caller, call in, and we were talking about kind of the political climate, and we left off. I was emphasizing that look, it's much more efficient, much more effective, and you can get a whole lot more by unionizing and just fighting for it directly, right? Because you don't have to wait for anything. You just got to organize. You could start organizing to have better working conditions, better wages, better health care tomorrow. Okay, the next time you see your coworkers, you can start talking about these issues. And I had a friend text me and say, that she felt like that I wasn't hitting on reproductive issues and women's health issues being important for workers. And that's true. That's encompassed in getting health care.
This is a negotiable term.
That's that's definitely encompassed. It's important to say that as a specific issue, because that's incredibly important, and it is essential for workers, and that is just one more way that unions can help people. And that way, if you have a union and you have a powerful union in your workplace, you're fighting for each other. You don't have to rely on the politicians, on the government, on elections to make sure that you have reproductive health care, that you that you have the things that you need as a woman covered. You don't have to worry about the next election. It's in your contract.
Yeah.
That's a negotiable thing, and so that's if you've got a union, if you have a union in your workplace that is powerful, that you've got a lot of solidarity among your members, among your brothers and sisters, a lot of this political stuff is almost secondary, even tertiary.
Yeah.
To you yourself. Obviously, it's important because it affects the people in your community, and unions play, unions fight in elections, obviously, and we send people out and we mobilize for politicians, and we do that because it's important to fight for our community. But for us, for our needs, the elections are almost secondary or tertiary because we've already got them taken care of.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the disconnect there, is the fact that people don't understand that in a union that's a negotiable item, and the fact that if you have a unionized workplace and if you are negotiating for those health care packages, you don't have to rely on the Supreme Court to overturn, like they did with the Hobby Lobby case, like they did with the Sisters of the Nuns.
Little Sisters of the Poor or something.
So, the fact is, how long does that take? They overturn it, and then you're stuck. You're waiting on, God help us, another 8 or 10 presidential cycles down the road to get some more left-leaning Supreme Justices in the courts, and that's exactly what we're saying. Maybe we don't word it well enough, but the fact is, when you fight as a union, you're not reliant, you're not beholden on the government to provide you with benefits.
Yeah, everything's on the table.
Yeah, I don't know what to say other than that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point that we're trying to make every week, and maybe we're not being detailed enough. Maybe we should talk more about these are the rights that you'll have, that you demand, that you demand in your workplace, not hoping that some politician being funded by big pharma or healthcare industry is going to do for you.
Yeah, and it's so it's so relieving to have that kind of autonomy, that that you're not going to have to rely, your health care, your reproductive rights is not dependent on the next election.
Lord have mercy.
Can
you imagine?
That's a scary place for people to be in, and I
don't know that. That's the problem. I've worked union my whole life, so I don't know. I don't understand.
That is I
don't get it. I've never had to work in the service industry as a waiter or a waitress or one of these other locations and wonder, are they going to do away with IUDs on the next one or something or another like this? It's a terrible place, and that's why we're preaching. We can help you. We can help you, and you can help yourself more than anything.
That's all we would do. That's all we would do is help you to help yourself. We can't come in there and wave a magic wand after going into your workplace and boom, you've got a union, right? All we can do is educate you about how you can help yourself.
Yeah. And that's give you the infrastructure.
And give you the infrastructure and connect you to the people that can walk you through the process and bring you into a system of support where you've got people that are trying to help you not only win a union, but win gains after you get a union.
And stand with you week to week to week.
Yes.
That is the most, like you talked about earlier, in my workplace is predominantly right-wing, Republican, libertarian style. But just like you said, regardless of political affiliations, we all stand together and support each other. When somebody goes out, we're working with them to make sure they get everything that they need, and that's something that you don't get in any other workplace environment. Maybe you've got some friends, but not the whole cohesive unit. The solidarity that you build there.
Yeah.
You don't get that in a normal workplace environment. I mean, how many people work over at AFGE?
Oh, thousands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you don't have the ability to do some mutual aid with somebody that you've never met over on the other side of the arsenal, unless that union is providing that buffer between those employees and saying, hey, guess what? At this union meeting, so-and-so was sick last month. We need to help them out any way we can.
Yeah, well, you told me a couple of years ago at the AFL-CIO convention, you were talking about your machinist convention that happened a couple days prior, and how this man was like new to the union, and he like got up and was talking about how much the union means to him and his family, and how and you said like he was brought to tears, and this is
just about the whole room was brought to tears.
Like, and
because you don't recognize it. It's become so old hat that this is just what we do. You don't recognize it until somebody comes out and says thank you for what you're doing.
Right.
And that's when it spurs that. Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, it becomes second nature.
Yeah. I mean, solidarity, love, respect, support. That is second nature in a union. That's just what you do. It's like I make the comparison to churches a lot. I only know the church environment that I came up in, but there was a lot of love and support and solidarity between the people in that congregation that I have the only other organization that I've seen even come close to that kind of interconnectedness is a union. And I think that's missing. Like, a lot of people, especially as we're in a more secular age where a lot of people don't go to church as much anymore, like they just don't have these communities that they can count on for support. And
they're certainly not getting it in the political sphere.
Yeah, and we're telling you,
not getting it there.
You can get it from the labor movement. The labor movement, you will have millions of people that are willing to fight for you day in and day out. Join a union. And tune in again next week to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks.
WVNN Athens, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus station. It's 11 o'clock. News starts now.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Pack with tributes around the nation as the country